Your day has gotten a lot better. You can stand a chance of winning amazing prizes every month on Aloore Radio. How to participate? Follow us on our Facebook page on Aloore Radio. Share our program links on all your social media platforms. The person with the highest shared links win our amazing monthly prizes. Share, listen to Aloore Radio, the voice of Oyo State.
A very wonderful morning to you out there. You're welcome to your darling program, Newspaper Review, on Aloore Radio. And we are transmitting from the GSM studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan. You can like and share on Facebook. It is at www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube, it is at Aloore Radio. And our website remains www.alooreradio.com. And on Play Store, you can download Aloore Radio. Our studio line is 09039853731. I am Olukemi Omotosho. I have with me the Nigerian Tribune and the Punch newspaper. The first story I'm going to take is from the Nigerian Tribune, and it says, first quarter 2022, debit servicing exceeds revenue. Federal government projects 6.72 trillion naira fuel subsidy for 2023. With a rider, Nigeria imported 202.9 million metric tons of petrol from 2015 till date, Nigerian Navy tells Rep. The two stories can be found on page 6 and page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. And Shetima's unveiling, clergymen not big names in Christendom, Tinubu campaign team, that can be found on page 8. Still on Nigerian Tribune, terrorist attacks, federal government molds nationwide ban on motorcycles, mining activities, that can be found on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. Another one says, running mate, aggrieved governor not leaving PDP, autumn, Atiku to meet Wike to pacify him, he says. That story can be found on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. And this wonderful story says, UTME, Ekiti indigenous scores highest as 378,639 candidates scored above 200. JAMB approves 140 cutoff for universities, 120 for polytechnics, returns 29 billion naira to federal accounts. The story can be found on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune. And House of Reps, all sales of 5 power plants, says federal government in breach of Privatization Act. That is on page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune. And I have this one that says, Shippers Council meets Maritime Workers Union. And the writer says, fails to convince workers to resume work at APM terminals. That can be found on page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. And this one is a foreign news. It says, Joe Biden tests positive for COVID-19. That can be found on page 21. And 2023, CBN insists it's illegal to buy dollar with naira for campaign. That can be found on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. And another one says, INEC to publish particulars of candidates for 2023 state elections tomorrow. That is on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. Going to the Punch newspaper, the first story I'm going to read says, 6.7 trillion fuel subsidy. Revenue falls by 1.89 trillion naira. Nigerians face tougher times. And a couple of riders, the first one says, states, federal government will be crippled, says Finance Commissioners Forum. Using revenue to service subsidy, jet, orders, dangerous. That is from an expert. And federal government spending deficit rises to 3.09 trillion naira, says report. The stories can be found on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. And I have this one that says, NYC mourns as 2 core members die in crash. That can be found on page 14 of the Punch newspaper. JAMB releases cut-off, says admission ends December 31st. That is on page 13. Still on the Punch newspaper, I have INEC records 334 pre-election court cases. That can be found on page 28 of the Punch newspaper. And pre-jury, court permits NGO to pursue Tinubu's prosecution. That is on page 14. And still on the Punch newspaper, power generation crashes to 3 megawatts. Federal government begins probe. That is on page 20. And DSS reports warns against protests in Gigetel's NLC. That can be found on page 28 of the Punch newspaper. While we have reps probe NNPC multi-billion-dollar JV deals. That is on page 22. And pension operators invest 1.99 trillion naira via bank placement. That is on page 22 of the Punch newspaper. 109 billion naira fraud. EFCC arraigns ex-AGF Idris today. That is on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. While I have this one that says, stranded woman begs nursing mother for accommodation, steals baby. That is a very terrible one. That is found on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. And Kuje, minors, motorcyclists fault federal government's planned ban. That is on page 17 of the Punch newspaper. And Lagos policemen assault, rob driver of 50,000 naira. That can be found on page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. With that, we'll go on a short break to be back for the full details of the newspaper.
àṣà ò gbọ́dọ̀ wọlé gbẹ́yẹlé àṣà ò gbọ́dọ̀.
ẹ ǹlẹ́ bàbá àdìo ẹ wo aṣọ ọ̀gbẹ́yẹlé nìkan mọ́ nísìn ẹlẹ́yẹlé gan-an làṣà ń gbé ọ̀rọ̀ ojú òní ìmọ̀ wa rí yín fún. ṣé ẹ rí nígbà tí ìjọba kọ̀ tí ó sọ̀rọ̀ láwọn ọ̀dọ́ ti ṣaṣara bàgbó pé kí gbogbo àwọn oníṣẹ́ bí ó kù lágbègbè wa ni wọ́n bá níjọba sọ pé kámórí wá ká fọrùn lẹ̀.
tá ń sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ àdìo ìwọ náà sì tún pẹ̀lú ọ̀bọ jáwúra mi bí wọ́n mọ̀ pé nǹkan tíjọba àpínlẹ̀ ọ̀yọ́ ń sọ ni pé a lè fi nǹkan tó kù díẹ̀ káàtó ṣàtúnṣe nǹkan tí ò dáa ó dáa àdìo láti gbẹ̀ tí wàá déhùn ṣé eégún kan ti wá yọrẹ sí babaláwo yín bí.
rárá o bàbá.
ní nǹkan tó jẹ́ pé kẹ́yìn ọ̀dọ́ tó fọn níjọba ti yàwó tùlù fún ẹ̀ṣọ́ aláàbò àmọ̀tẹ́kùn pé kí wọ́n fi tọ̀gbẹ́ tààlà láti lé gbogbo àwọn ẹni ibi jáde ní kọ̀lọ̀fín wọn bẹ́ẹ̀ ló ṣètò ọlọ́pàá scrodom ibi fáàbò gbogbo wa nípìnlẹ̀ ọ̀yọ́ náà ni ṣèjọba tó wá ṣe yùn ní òwà rẹ̀ nìràn lẹ́rù ni ó tún mọ́ ọkọ̀ fẹ́ bí.
ọ̀rọ̀ yín yé mi bàbá àmọ́ ọ̀tọ̀ ní táwọn èèyàn mọ̀ ń wíìkì.
àwọn ará abi ti tòṣèlú bọ̀ ọ́nù nígbà àtàkùté wọn mẹ́tẹ̀ẹ̀ta òré ó rí wọn lórí ẹ̀rọ ayélujára táwọn ti ròyìn òfegè ní ibi láti sọ̀jọba gómìnà Ṣèyí Mákindé ní súná bú ni.
bàbá kí làá wàá ṣe ṣé ẹ mọ̀ pọ́rọ̀ sọkúsọ bíi náà nú ẹ̀rùn ni.
ẹ̀yin ọ̀dọ́ tẹ́ ẹ nífẹ̀ẹ́ ìpínlẹ̀ ọ̀yọ́ dénú náà ni kẹ́ ẹ sọ fún gbogbo òlù pé orí ìpinnu àṣà ò gbọdọ̀ wọlé gbẹ́yẹlé níjọba ìpínlẹ̀ ọ̀yọ́ dúró lé.
ó ti yé mi bàbá mo sì ń lọ rèé fọn rere rẹ̀ náà nù. iléeṣẹ́ ètò ìròyìn àṣà ohun ìrìn àjò afẹ́ tìpínlẹ̀ ọ̀yọ́ ló ń kéde.
ìyá ọmọlúàbí ni kó ṣèlérí kó sì mú lérí rẹ̀ ṣẹ lásìkò polongo òdìbò ni gómìnà Ṣèyí Mákindé ti sọ pé ìṣèjọba òun kò ní ṣàdédé lé ẹnikẹ́ni níbi tí wọ́n ti ń jẹ tí wọ́n ti ń mu láì ṣe pé òun pèsè ibòmíì fún wọn láti má déhùn yìí ṣẹ ìgbìmọ̀ amúṣẹ́yá ti ń rí sí ìtọ́jú àwọn oníbàárà nílùú Ìbàdàn tí kó gbogbo àwọn oníbàárà tó wà ní Sábó lọ sí agbègbè kan ní Akínyẹlé bẹ́ẹ̀ ni wọ́n sì ṣe káàkiri gbogbo ìlú Ìbàdàn ètò ààbò ẹ̀mí òun ìgbé ayé ìrọ̀rùn níjọba ti pèsè fún àwọn oníbàárà yìí níbẹ̀ èyí ni ó wá gbòdẹ́kun fáwọn amòòkùnṣìkà tí wọ́n ń ṣe bí oníbàárà láti ṣiṣẹ́ ẹbí wọn ìjọba wa ń rọ gbogbo ẹ̀yin onínúdúndùn ọlọ́rẹ tí mọ́ ń tọ́jú àwọn oníbàárà yìí pé kẹ́ ẹ máa lọ bá wọn lákínyẹlé láti ṣeṣẹ́ ọ̀rẹ́ yín ààbò tó péye ti wà fún ẹ̀yin àtàwọn tẹ́ ẹ fẹ́ ta lọ́rẹ níbẹ̀ ìgbìmọ̀ amúṣẹ́yá tó ń rí sí ọ̀rọ̀ àwọn oníbàárà nípìnlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ló ń kéde.
You're welcome back to Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio. We are transmitting from the GSM studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan. The first story I'm going to take is from page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. It says, terrorist attack. Federal government mulls nationwide ban on motorcycles mining. The National Security Council, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, on Thursday revealed measures being considered to rein in the terrorist activities, including a nationwide ban on use of motorcycles as well as mining activities to cut off terrorist sources of funds. The Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, flanked by his Interior and Police Affairs counterparts, Rauf Agbegbeshola and Muhammad Digiyadi, respectively, briefed correspondents at the end of the meeting by the terrorists. Malami said these include motorcycles used for movement and mining of solid minerals, which provide them the money to fund their arms supply. He said the federal government is now looking at ways to impede their actions by blocking the sources already identified, noting that terrorists have moved from the conventional way of funding their activities to mining and ransom taking, making it necessary for the government to act. For the rest of that story, we can turn to page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. Terrorist attacks. Federal government moves nationwide ban on motorcycles mining. And I have this story on Osun election. It says Adeleke Oyetola trade wars over government assets. Osun government elects raises alarm over alleged diversion and is being answered. Ignore Adeleke's fake lamentation, government tells residents. Osun State Governor-elect Senator Ademola Adeleke had warned Governor Adegboyega Oyetola and his allies against diversion and looting of government assets and public properties, alerting the general public to alleged clandestine move to convert public properties to private ownership and bankrupt state finances ahead of change of government. In his prompt reaction to the allegation, however, Governor Oyetola's senior advisor on political matters, Mr. Sunday Akere, described the claim as unfounded and far from the truth, urging the members of the public to disregard Adeleke's statements. Adeleke, who dropped the warning in a statement signed by his media aide Olawale Rasheed in Osogbo, alleged that aside from the 17 billion naira loan allegedly taken by Oyetola to prosecute the lost election, we are undaunted with credible reports of emergency contract awards, hurried processing of payment vouchers, and grand agenda to incur further debts under the guise of project implementation. For the rest of that story, you can turn to page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. And I have on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune, vice presidential candidate aggrieved governors not leaving PDP, autumn. Governors of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, including Nyesom Wike Rivers, Sam Otom of Benue, and Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, who are aggrieved over the selection of their Delta State counterpart, Ifeanyi Okowa, as the presidential running mate of the party, have no plans to defect from the party. Otom revealed this on Thursday against mounting speculations that they may dump the main opposition party to protest the treatment meted out to Governor Wike by the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar. Despite emerging the choice of the PDP Special Selection Committee for the position, Atiku has set aside the committee's recommendation in preference for the Delta governor. Some of the All Progressive Congress APC governors, including Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti, Rotimi Akeredolu Ondo, and Babajide Sanwo-Olu, recently met with Wike in Port Harcourt in what was seen as an attempt to feed on his discontent with the PDP to woo him into the ruling party. For the rest of that story, you can turn to page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. I have this on page 30, and it says, Reps all says of 5 power plants, says federal government in breach of privatization act. The House of Representatives on Thursday urged ongoing efforts by the federal government to sell the 5 power plants located in Calabar, Cross River State, Ihor Harbor, Edo State, Olorunsogo Omotosho, and Geregu in Kogi State, belonging to the 3 tiers of government. The resolution was passed sequel to the adoption of a motion of urgent public importance sponsored by the chairman of the House Committee on Power, Honorable Magaji Aliyu. In his lead debate, Aliyu observed that the National Council on Privatization and Board of Directors of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, in collaboration with the Bureau of Public Enterprises, through a request for expression of interest, resolved to sell 5 generation power plants. He said, and I quote, "The House is aware that the plants were constructed under the National Integrated Power Project (NIPP) with gross installed capacity SO6 MW 507 megawatts, 634 megawatts, 513 megawatts, and 754 megawatts respectively, to support the delivery of core mandates of NDPHC of ensuring the stability of Nigerians' power supply." The House further is aware that the shareholding of the NDPHC is held by the federal government with 47%, state and local government 53%. For the rest of that story, you can turn to page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune. And I still have this story on page 30. It says 3,657 civil servants before ICPC over IPPIS. A total of 3,657 civil servants have been taken for prosecution before the Independent and Corrupt Processes and Related Offence Commission (ICPC) for failing to get verified on the Integrated Personal Payroll Information System. Head of Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi Eson, disclosed this while appearing on the ministerial media briefing organized by the Presidential Communications Team at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, on Thursday. She also revealed that a total of 61,446 civil servants in the core ministries, departments, and agencies have now been verified. Yemi Eson said another 1,618 participants were found to have used illegal or fake letters, while 874 officers were suspended from IPPIS platform. For the rest of that story, you can turn to page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune. And going to the Punch newspaper, I have the first story taken from page 8 of the Punch newspaper. It says 109 billion naira fraud, EFCC arraign ex-AGF Idris today. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission will on Friday, that is today, arraign a former Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Ahmad Idris, before Justice Adeyemi Ajayi of the Federal Capital Territory High Court, Abuja. The Commission disclosed that in a statement on Thursday posted on its website and social media handles, it said it is to be docked along 3 others, Olusegun Akindele, Muhammad Kudu Usman, and Gezawa Commodity Market and Exchange Limited on a 14-count charge of stealing and criminal breach of trust to the tune of 909,485,691,691.90 kobo. The statement read. For the rest of that story, you can turn to page 8 of the Punch newspaper. And still on the Punch newspaper, I have reps propose extension of UTME results lifespan. The House of Representatives have approved the extension of the lifespan of the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board's Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination results from 1 year to 4 years. The results validity extension was proposed in JAMB Act Amendment Bill, which passed second reading at the House on Thursday, sponsored by a member of the House from Oyo State, Tolulope Akande Shadipe. The legislation is titled A Bill for the Act to amend the Joint Administration and Matriculation Board Establishment and so on Act 2021 and other related matters. For the rest of that story, you can turn to page 8 of the Punch newspaper. And on page 14, I have pre-jury. Court permits NGO to pursue Tinubu's prosecution. A federal high court in Abuja on Thursday granted permission to a civil rights organization under the urges of Incorporated Trustees of Center for Reforms and Public Advocacy to apply for order of mandamus that will compel the Inspector General of Police to prosecute the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, over alleged perjury. Justice Nyang Eko granted the leave while delivering ruling in an expurgatory application argued by the group's lawyer, Ugo Nwanfo. The expatriate application was filed by the organization following the alleged refusal of the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, to arrest and prosecute Tinubu for allegedly supplying false information on oath in respect of his educational qualification. For the rest of that story, you can turn to page 14 of the Punch newspaper. Pre-jury court permits NGO to pursue Tinubu's prosecution. And on page 28, I have the final story that says, Reps probes jailbreak, NCOS hopeful on fleeing inmates. The House of Representatives has mandated its Committee on National Security and Intelligence, Interior, Reformatory Services, Defense, Army, Air Force, Navy, and Police Affairs to investigate the causes, dimension, and effects of the recent Kuje Custodial Center attack. The Joint Committee is to make its report available within 4 weeks for further legislative actions. For the rest of that story, you can turn to page 28 of the Punch newspaper. Reps probes jailbreak, NCOS hopeful on fleeing inmates. And with that, we've come to the end of today's newspaper review. We hope you will continue to stay on with Aloore Radio. We are transmitting from GSM studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan. On YouTube, it is at Aloore Radio. Our website remains www.alooreradio.com. On mobile app, you can download Aloore Radio on Play Store. And the studio line is 09039853731. 09039853731. Thanks for listening and do have a wonderful weekend. I am Olukemi Omotosho.